Poetry often offers us an inroad, sometimes an inroad into understanding, inroads into other perspectives than might have been common to us before encountering the poem. Sometimes poetry invites us into questioning, either by posing questions or by suggesting that there are other ways of going, other ways of looking at things, and other ways of approaching our own lives. In so presenting itself, a poem is very significantly non-linear quite a bit of the time. And so for this week's featured writer, we're exploring that. Actually, our writer this week suggests that that is the core part of what invited her into poetry. The realization that that was part of how she approaches thinking and approaches her life. How fragmentation, how the pieces, the little pieces that make up existence, that make up life itself, those things invited her into a space where she could explore that on paper and therefore poetry. So this week, we are very happy to welcome you to the Ackee Pod. It is episode 9. Welcome to episode 9 of the Ackee Pod. We're very happy to have on the program this evening Reetta Pekkanen, who is from Finland. She is also a fellow in the University of Iowa's International Writing Program. So while we were in Iowa City, I got a chance to speak to Reetta about her work, and this is how it went. So let me tell you a little bit about Reetta. She has published so far 4 collections of poetry, which their titles translate to Small Hard Buds in 2014, Tendril in 2019, Smugglings in 2021, and Tulips in 2023, right? She's an award-winning poet, and of course, I met her during her fellowship in Iowa City. She's also part of the poetry publishing cooperative, Poesia. Of course, we're inviting you to continue to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Wild Current Studios, and continue to engage with each episode. Episode 7 looked into the conceptualization of the Ackee Pod, like what is Ackee to begin with, and why call something the Ackee Pod. So go ahead and watch episode 7 for all of that. Episode 8, we of course spoke to Raoul de Jong from Suriname and the Netherlands, who is a fiction writer. And so we invite you to check out all our episodes. They are on our YouTube channel, and of course follow us on Instagram at Wild Current Studios. So let us get into this episode and see what Reetta, our featured writer this week, Reetta Pekkanen, has to say about her work in poetry. I'm Yashika Graham, welcoming you to this episode of the Ackee Pod, Interviews with Writers.
My name is Reetta Pekkanen. I'm a poet from Finland.
And why did you choose poetry? Did poetry choose you?
Yeah, I don't know if I ever really chose to write poetry. I think at some point I just found out that that's the way I look at the world. Like, it comes to me in pieces and in small notions and small ways of putting things and seeing things. yeah, so I guess in some way I found a form that matched my way of perceiving things in general.
So you were already doing it, but now you found what the word is that matches what you were already doing?
I think I was struggling with the concept of like, when writing prose you have to have some kind of a concept or a story. Yeah, like a storyline you need to build up. But I found that really difficult to kind of have a narrative to what you are experiencing. And then poetry, I guess, sort of saved me from that you can just have it in pieces and it will turn into a story, or not a story, but like an entity in any case. But you don't need to build it. It's there. You just have to capture those small things and moments, and that will become your story, if you will.
So it doesn't have to be linear necessarily.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. So where do your poems begin?
Where do my poems begin? At least recently, they haven't really begun. I mean, they've come together. Like, they have different points of beginning, and then at some point these fragments find each other, and that becomes the poem. But there is not like a beginning to them. It's a puzzle, really. And I feel like only when I have all the pieces, there can be a right order for them. But first I have to find those pieces or write them down. So like for the first 95% of the time, I have no idea what I'm doing. And then the last 5% of the time is when I actually create the order. And when you put those pieces next to each other, something happens. But if you look at them as single pieces, maybe you don't see anything happening. But it's about those connections and the empty space between those fragments that creates the meaning.
That's really beautiful. I've never thought of it like that, but it's like putting down, you have to put things down.
Yes.
So people always talk about, especially people who teach writing, that you have to write to be a writer. And so you're making me think about that, like you have to go through the process to kind of discover what you are writing, because you're never going to know unless you actually engage with the craft.
Yeah, I guess that's really true. And like, because it has happened so many times that when I write something, when I am writing it, it looks like this is nothing. This is like, why am I putting this down? So it's not meaningful. But only later it becomes meaningful when it finds the right connection with some other thing that I've written. Because there has been a reason why I have thought of that thing and put it down. But it needs connections and other elements, you know?
Yeah. Kind of like a band, the different instruments played.
Like a band or like a human being, I guess.
Yes, forgot it.
Yeah.
I'm curious about sound. So when I hear you read, there is this music to your voice and to the way you engage with the words, your pacing, and the language that you use and the sounds of the language. So both the words themselves and how you kind of dance through it. Can you say anything about what informs your approach to reading and to music, to rhythm when you write?
I find rhythm very important when I write. That's like what tells me if it's right or wrong, if there's a way to say it in my head or out loud the way it feels right. But it's really hard to describe like what makes the rhythm right or wrong, because it's not like you know, it doesn't have this like rhythmic patterns or anything you could kind of reduce into pieces, but it definitely plays a role. And when I read, I guess I just try to be very present in the moment, because that's where the poem happens, that's where it takes place. So I need to be there with those words like I heard them for the first time myself, and just let them come, and then they can be fresh to the people hearing them.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not something I already know, but it's something that evolves there. Yeah.
So you allow the words to kind of occupy you, or you occupy the words at the same time?
Yeah, I really have to feel them and feel them through as I say them.
Yeah.
Otherwise, for me, it's like it becomes hollow.
Why is writing important to you, Reetta?
I think quite early in my life, writing became that one channel that I was able to communicate with the world around me. Not only the people who were there in the same room or same house with me, but actually to have connection with, I don't know, to talk about things that matter with someone, and to have, like, feel like we are on the same page, even if that person might be dead already and they've written a book and now I'm reading it somewhere in a totally other place around the world. No, it was about communication. I felt from the early on, I felt like that's the place where I can be completely honest and I can really look to be heard. Yeah.
And so was reading very important for you growing up? Were you excited about books and getting into texts, and have those experiences been important for you as you've continued on your journey?
Yeah, like, I don't know why or how it began, but like I learned to read very young, like age of 4 or something, and already at that time I was telling people around me that I will become a writer, I will do this is my thing, and that's like the one thing that has really stayed the same all these years. So reading was immensely important, and the libraries, I'm so grateful for libraries, because we didn't have books at home. My family didn't really read, but what they did is they took me to the library, and so I could read everything that was there. And so that was kind of my second home, I would say.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
And that's Reetta Pekkanen getting us into her world of writing, and how she was invited into that craft, and how reading has been such a significant part of her experience. Reading books, engagement with literature has played such a significant role for her, and how, as we said before, that fragmentation that life can have played a significant role in her choosing poetry, and vice versa, poetry choosing her to engage and to put that fragmentation now on the page. So we see how that works in reverse, and the other way around. So that's it for this episode. It's been an absolute pleasure being here with you. Thank you so much for joining us. We invite you to join us again next Monday for a brand new episode, and we invite you to continue to like, subscribe, and share. Yes, share, of course. And you do so on our YouTube channel, Wild Current Studios, and of course, follow us on Instagram at Wild Current Studios. All right? Until next time, I'm Yashika Graham for the Ackee Pod, Interviews with Writers.